back. It's Professor B. Welcome to the first year experience. This is our college guide. You see me looking over to the side, I'm looking at my notes. But yes, we're talking all about figuring out your course or class schedule. I invite you to talk back in the comments and I will respond. But let's go ahead and get started. We're going to do some deep breathing. So let's go ahead and get started. I invite you to close your eyes, roll your shoulders back, plant your feet if able, and let's go ahead and inhale for a count of 3, exhale for a count of 5. And our intention for this episode and all the episodes is to be as present as we have capacity, honoring the journey it took for us to get to this moment. Let us begin. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. We're talking about your class schedule. So we're looking at your range of classes, not one specific course. We'll talk about our syllabus in episode 2. So a few things to pay attention to when we're looking at our course schedule. That is whether you're in the fall semester, beginning, middle, end, whether you're preparing to register for courses, whether you're in the summer. Wherever you find yourself, it's very important to pay attention to our course schedule. So the first thing we want to pay attention to is the number of credits we're taking. So generally, to be a full-time student, you have to take at least 12 credits. So you want to make sure you pay attention to that, particularly when we're thinking about add drop, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So with the 12 credits, you can have a range of ways to get to 12. So you could do 4 3-credit courses. You could do 3 3-credit courses with the lab that gives you 4 credits. You can do a mix between some 2-credit, 1-credit, 3 4-credit courses. But especially in this first year, I invite you to just be mindful of the number of classes you take. So let's say you want to be a full-time student and you took 6 2-credit courses. Well, if this is your first year, taking 6 classes is a lot. The other thing that you're wanting to think about is this isn't like high school where you'll take like all your core subjects at the same time. If you, hopefully you don't have to do that. And I mean, you taking like math, English, science, a history, all in the same semester. I don't necessarily encourage you to do that. I'm not your advisor. I do encourage you to talk to an advisor. I will say that the course rigor is going to be different. So you want to be mindful of that so that you can have a strong first year. So we're making sure that we're a full-time student if that's what we choose. Now, some of us might be part-time students. That's totally fine. It just depends on what you want your college experience to be. Now let's talk about course numbers, titles, section numbers, and instructor of record / professor. So you want to pay attention to your course numbers. So when we think about like 100 level courses, often students think like, oh my gosh, these courses are so easy. You know, it's a 100 level course. Listen, do not be fooled by the course number. I've taken 100 level courses that have been so difficult. We also want to pay attention to courses that build on each other. So for example, if you want to take a 200 level course, you may have to take a 100 level prerequisite. The other thing you want to pay attention to is your section number. So like, let's say you take psychology 101. Well, for a lot of universities and colleges, there are a lot of sections. Basically what that means is that this course will be offered several times. So the section number is very important because you might have the same professor as some of your classmates, but you have a different section number, and your section number is going to be unique to that course. And also your instructor of record or professor. We definitely want to pay attention to that because you want to make sure that you are taking the course with the professor that you actually want to take the course with. Now, it's different if you have a TBD, which is to be determined, but generally our courses will have people assigned to teach it. Okay, let's talk about modalities. So there are 4 different modalities that I want to briefly talk about. So we have in person, which is where you'll meet on a specific day, at a specific time, at a specific location. So on your schedule, it should have your location, the days of the week you meet, and the time. Let's say you're synchronous. That's where you'll meet on specific days at a specific time, but you're meeting on a video platform, usually Zoom. Then we have asynchronous. Asynchronous is where you do not meet at any point in the semester with your professor or the learning community. And that is really a self-taught course where you'll get your work on your learning management system and then you complete the work at a certain time. Then we have hybrid, which could be a combination of any of those modalities. You also want to think about your level of engagement with the course. So if you're one of those folks who don't feel like being physically present, having to get up to walk to class if you're on campus, I encourage you to see if you can take some online courses. Or let's say you like a combination of both, so some in person, some online. And I will say that I've seen lately this trend of moving away from a lot of online courses, so you also want to pay attention to that. Prerequisites. So I kind of mentioned that before, but your prerequisites are any courses that you need to take before you move on to the next course. And let's say you signed up you want to take a 300 level course, find out if there are any prerequisites. And the best way, well, two ways to kind of find out is to look at your course catalog. And so that's generally a list of all the courses that your school offers. And so most schools have like one page that has all the courses listed, well, like one main page that has all the courses listed, and then you can do a search. Or you can look at your schedule of classes, which is a digital version of your course schedule. And that is where you'll also find that information. That is very important. Or the third way is to talk to your advisor. Let's talk about add drop. So add drop is usually the first week or 2 weeks. That is where you can add courses and drop them. But please do not be deceived. You still want to be a full-time student if you want to be a full-time student. So let's say you only signed up for 12 credits. It won't be in your best interest to drop a course and go below the full-time status. Oh, this is the other thing with add drop. I invite you to, especially when we're like our first week of classes, is to really assess your capacity for workload. So again, if we're taking a lot of heavy reading classes, heavy writing classes, and you don't feel like you're prepared for that, switch it up a little bit. Maybe you have 2 difficult courses and 2 courses that may feel a bit easier, if you will, and you can gauge that. Or even if you can't gauge that, I invite you to think about how you want your schedule to be set up, and we'll actually talk about that in another episode. Because I think for a lot of students, and I don't know if it's still like that, and you can let me know in the comments, but I think we have this idea of what college is, and college is supposed to be so hard, and we're supposed to work so hard. You're going to naturally work hard in college. That is a part of the experience, but you want to have balance. And so it might not be in your best interest to take all of the hard classes in the beginning if you can help it. Now, it depends on your major. Now, there are some majors that out the gate, you have to take all these difficult courses. And so we'll talk about ways that you can manage that workload if you don't have the option in later episodes. This is the last part of this episode that is so near and dear to my heart, is accommodations. So I'm a person who, and I share this openly, it's not a secret, I have anxiety, and I actually had to get an accommodation letter at the doctoral level. Truth be told, I should have got it earlier. And I'm sharing this with you. I've shared this with my students because there is no shame. And I want to take away the stigma of having an accommodation letter. And so what is an accommodation letter? An accommodation letter is a letter from your Office of Disability or Accessibility where you'll share documentation and you will let the school know what you need to supplement your education. So it may mean that you need more time to submit your assignments, there are a myriad of accommodations you can have. You could get more time on tests. Let's say you need to take a test in another room. If it's in person, you're able to do that. Not only if you need more time, let's say you need your instructions read to you, you're able to get that. Let's say you need someone to actually physically be in the classroom to support you. I've seen that as well. There are just a range of tools and resources, and I just invite you, even if you feel like you don't need it, I'm old school. And my grandma used to say, you rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And so I will say though, the caveat for an accommodation letter is you have to get documentation from a professional. And so I got documentation from my therapist that your accommodation letter does not change the nature of the course. So that also means, let's say, when I taught at my previous institution, students gave speeches, presentations, if you will. So there was no workaround. That was a part of the course. Now, I will say, and you can learn more about my teaching style in the educator series that I'll drop later, but there are ways to be creative for presentations. And I can share all about the different ways, but that was a fundamental component of the course that was already decided before I started teaching. And so I just don't want you to think that your accommodation letter is an end all be all, but it is a great support. All right, y'all, I've talked long enough. I will definitely be calling y'all back later. And I'm so glad that we're on this journey together. And as we say here at Boosie Teaches, in a galaxy of learners, Boosie Teaches like Sway.